The salesman gripped his headset tightly, his knuckles white as he spoke sharply into the mic, his gaze fixed in cold judgment. "I'm telling you, there's a black kid causing trouble in the showroom. He's pretending he can buy a car. Send someone to get him out of here now." He clicked off his earpiece and turned his eyes toward Ethan, narrowing them with disdain. "Get out. Right now," the man barked. "You don't belong in this dealership." The echo of his voice cut through the pristine stillness of the showroom. His name tag gleamed under the brilliant lights. Darren Whitmore, Senior Sales Manager of Ashford Elite Motors. 17-year-old Ethan Miles stood his ground, his backpack slung over one shoulder, the weight of years of hard work tucked neatly inside. Documents, approval letters, financing papers. His hand stayed calm at his sides, though his pulse raced. "Sir," Ethan said, his voice steady, "I'm just here to buy a car. I've been saving for years. My financing is already approved." The general manager said I could. "I don't care what anyone told you." Darren cut him off, already reaching for the intercom on the polished oak desk. "This dealership is for serious buyers only." He jabbed a button. "Security," he barked. "I have an unauthorized individual in the showroom. Remove him immediately." Ethan's throat tightened, but he kept his composure. Fear and frustration wore in his eyes. He had done nothing wrong. All he had done was walk into a dealership with money and a dream. But Darren had just made the biggest mistake of his career. Because Ethan Miles wasn't just any teenager. Before we continue Ethan's story, if you believe that everyone deserves to be treated with dignity and respect, no matter their background or the color of their skin, let us know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button for more stories like this. Ethan Miles had spent years dreaming about this moment. While other teens were hooked on TikTok dances or late-night gaming marathons, Ethan had poured himself into something else entirely: cars. But not just in the way most kids did, gawking at Lamborghinis in YouTube videos or fantasizing about driving fast. Ethan had studied cars, obsessed over them. He knew the intricacies of engines, the difference between torque and horsepower, the subtle aerodynamic tweaks that turned a decent sedan into a high-performance machine. Weekends, while his classmates went to parties, Ethan hung around auto shops and car meets. He grilled mechanics about V8 engines versus turbocharged inline-4s, memorized fuel efficiency charts, and could rattle off 0 to 60 times from memory. His weekends were spent detailing cars, changing oil, and learning everything he could about machines that, for him, symbolized freedom. Every dollar he earned working at Rocco's Auto Garage was saved. He hadn't splurged on sneakers or gaming consoles. Instead, every paycheck was tucked away, slowly building toward one singular goal: buying his first car. And not just any car, the car. And today, after 3 years of sacrifice, the day had come. Ethan's heart pounded as he stepped off the city bus and onto the pavement in front of Ashford Elite Motors, the most prestigious luxury dealership in the city. He had walked by it dozens of times, peeking through the vast glass windows at the sleek machines that gleamed under showroom lights. But today was different. Today, he wasn't there to admire them. Today, he was there to buy one. He had dressed for the occasion. A crisp button-down shirt, dark jeans, and sneakers so clean they could have been new. The backpack on his shoulder held his pre-approved financing paperwork, bank statements, and the down payment. Everything he needed to drive away in his dream. He took a deep breath and stepped inside. The interior was immaculate. Polished marble floors reflected the light from crystal fixtures. The smell of leather, new car polish, and understated cologne lingered in the air. Rows of luxury vehicles stood like sculptures: sleek coupes, imposing SUVs, gleaming sedans. Ethan's eyes found it almost immediately. A midnight black sports sedan. Aggressive lines, sculpted bodywork, gleaming alloy wheels. It was even more stunning in person. But as he stepped closer, the moment was shattered. "Hey kid, you lost." The voice came from behind him, sharp, condescending. Ethan turned slowly. Darren Whitmore stood there in a tailored charcoal suit, a gold name tag pinned proudly on his lapel. His expression was skeptical at best. "No, sir," Ethan replied. "I'm here to buy a car." Darren chuckled under his breath. shaking his head as if he'd misheard. You? By car? From here. His gaze flicked up and down Ethan's frame, his smirk widening. Kid, this isn't a car rental lot. Maybe try the used lot down on Brookline Avenue. A slow burn crept up Ethan's neck, but he swallowed it. This wasn't the first time someone had judged him by his age or his skin. I know exactly what I want, Ethan said firmly. He pointed toward the black sedan. Darren followed his gaze and laughed outright. That one? Kid, that's not exactly in the price range of someone like you. Ethan's jaw clenched. He reached for his backpack, carefully unzipping it. I've got a down payment ready. I'm already approved for financing. But Darren wasn't interested. He crossed his arms and smirked. Let me guess, birthday money? A GoFundMe? Or is this some social media prank? A couple of nearby employees chuckled. Ethan's hands trembled, but he kept his voice even. No prank. I worked hard for this. He held up his documents, crisp and clean. Darren didn't even glance at them. No need, he said dismissively. I already know how this ends. You waste my time. Then you leave. He snapped his fingers toward the security guard. Escort this young man out. Ethan's chest tightened. His dream was slipping away. Not because he lacked money or credit, but because of one man's prejudice. But Ethan Miles didn't beg. He didn't plead. Instead, he pulled out his phone. I'll have someone come down, he said, voice steady. Darren snorted. Calling Mommy? Goo. Let's see what she can do. He had no idea. 15 minutes later, the dealership's atmosphere shifted. Engines growled outside. 3 black SUVs rolling up to the entrance. Heads turned. Employees froze mid-sentence. The receptionist dropped her pen. The door to the lead SUV opened. A woman stepped out. Her heels clicked sharply on the pavement. She was dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, her dark hair pulled into a sleek bun. Her face was serene, but her eyes burned with quiet authority. Naomi Miles, CEO of Miles Automotive Group, one of the largest suppliers of performance engines in the country. Darren still hadn't looked up. Look, kid, he muttered to Ethan. If your mom's here, too. He turned, and his voice died. Naomi's gaze pinned him in place like a hawk spotting prey. Darren paled. Mrs. Miles, I didn't. You didn't know who he was, Naomi said, her voice smooth and cold. And that's the problem. Naomi's words sliced through the showroom. My son came here today, prepared to purchase a car he worked for. Instead, he was mocked, humiliated, and dismissed based on an assumption. She turned to Darren. Tell me, Mr. Whitmore, if my son were white, in a suit, with a different name, would you have treated him the same? Darren stammered. I didn't. You did, Naomi cut in. And now you're done. The dealership's general manager hurried forward. Pale, sweating, effective immediately. Naomi continued, Mr. Whitmore is terminated, and this dealership will undergo comprehensive diversity and inclusion retraining. I want a report on my desk within 30 days. The general manager nodded. Yes, Mrs. Miles. Darren's shoulders sagged. He was finished. Ethan stood tall as his mother spoke. He had come for a car, but what he found was power, the power of knowing his worth. And when he drove home that evening in his black sports sedan, his mother in the passenger seat, he realized something. This wasn't just about cars. It was about changing the rules of who belonged. Epilogue. Ashford Elite Motors became the first dealership in the city to implement an industry-leading mentorship program for young people of color, providing scholarships, internships, and training. Ethan Miles was its first ambassador, and he never forgot what it felt like to be told he didn't belong. He made it his mission to make sure no one else ever heard those words again.